Hello, my name is Catherine Marchese, and in this video, I will outline the 3 ways I can and will fight racism in schools. The narrator and youth featured, as well as the strategies they discussed in the Racism in Schools How Can You Fight It video, inspired and informed me in the development of my own strategies for fighting racism in school and how I went about creating my video by providing me with real-life student and adult perspectives on the many forms of racism in schools, the impacts of racism in schools, and what I can do about it. Watching the video helped me to reflect on my teaching experience and the instances that I experienced and witnessed racism in my school from students, staff, and others. This reflection paired with the suggestions from the video, as well as what I gleaned from Affirming Diversity, the Socio-Political Context of Multicultural Education by Sonia Nieto and Patty Bode, informed my development of the three ways I can and will fight racism in schools. The first way I can and will fight racism in schools is by teaching more culturally responsive content, as the narrator from the Racism in Schools video explained in his example. I can talk about the Chinese laborers who built the railroads, not just the wealthy white men who owned them. An example from Chapter 4 of Nieto and Bode was that often when teachers discuss important community members with their students, the people in jobs that come up are firefighters, police, and mail carriers, which may be people who live outside the students' immediate communities. However, discussing important people from students' own communities, such as the owner of the corner bodega, or the local factory worker, bus driver, and community service provider, are all important and should be discussed as well. This is another example of teaching culturally responsive content, which reinforces to students that their communities are valued and important in classroom instruction. In Chapter 6, Nieto and Bode discuss the importance of valuing and nurturing language literacy by using literature in students' native languages, learning some keywords in students' home languages, and even creating recordings of greetings, simple conversations, short stories, and songs in students' first languages. Through the implementation of asset-based pedagogies, which is discussed in Chapter 7 of Nieto and Bode, I can maintain high expectations by accepting nothing less than the best for my students, affirming my students' identities, and believing in my students' intelligence. The second way I can fight racism in schools, which was discussed in the Racism in Schools video, is by not tolerating racist acts and slurs. To do this, I will reflect on my own background and other factors to reveal any implicit biases I may have. I can and will be vigilant and report any racist acts and slurs to administration immediately. I can and will have conversations with my students about how harmful these acts and slurs are and why they are wrong, and engage my students in discussions on how they can be part of the change by taking a stand against racism and reporting these acts, as well as refraining from committing them. The third way I can and will fight racism in schools is through the provision of the ethic of care. This was also discussed in Chapter 7 of Nieto and Bode, and it refers to whether educators and schools provide care for their students and how they do this. Nieto and Bode indicate that care means loving students in the most profound ways, through high expectations, authentic support, and rigorous demands that address the injustices students grapple with both in and out of school, from page 216. Also in Chapter 7 of Nieto and Bode, Jeremy Hilburn's case studies analyze some ways educators can leverage students' assets through enhanced instructions. Some examples of enhanced instruction include establishing critical civic discourse, challenging native-born students' assumptions, and adding comparative and international perspectives, from page 219. Through these and other ways of enhanced instruction, I can leverage my students' assets and help them develop their sense of belonging, purpose, and confidence in the classroom and in the community. In this way, I am doing something to fight racism in schools. I am taking a stand against the overt and covert climate and curriculum that supports only the dominant culture's cultural capital. Chapter 7 of Nieto and Bode also discusses Pierre Bourdieu's theory of cultural capital. His theory postulates that the confirmation of the dominant culture's supremacy results in a symbolic violence against devalued groups, from page 218. To challenge the monocultural canon, I can and will provide a full and complete education to students by including both the canon and norms from the dominant and dominated cultures, from page 218. Going back to the example used by the narrator in the Racism in Schools video, only teaching students about the wealthy white males that owned the railroads excludes a portion of the railroad history by omitting the information on the Chinese laborers who built the railroads. This is unjust, and it is a form of racism. Although I do not take the kind of moral and ethical oath doctors and lawyers must take, I can and will take a moral and ethical stand here and now to uphold the promise to teach for social justice and equity through actively fighting racism in and out of schools by educating students through culturally responsive practices, which are inclusive and honest, and which value everyone's history, background, culture, characteristics, feelings, thoughts, and rights. I, Catherine Marchese, did not use AI to develop this assignment. This is my own original creation featuring myself and my own voice. Thank you for listening.